Being an ERP and digital transformation consultant is a lot of fun. It's all I've done through my career, but it takes a lot of different skills and unique skills. And so I'd like to talk today about what makes a good ERP consultant and how can you get started as an ERP consultant. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients through their digital transformation journeys. And our team is full of ERP consultants, obviously. We all do ERP and digital transformation and HCM types of projects. And in fact, this is all I've ever done through my career. So what I wanted to do today is talk about what are the things that I think are most important as far as characteristics and traits and skill sets that will help you become a better ERP consultant. I began my career in the late 90s as an ERP consultant. And I started while I was getting my master's degree, and it was the summer before the second year of my master's degree, and I needed an internship to save up some money. And so I went to our career center and I looked for postings at the university. And one of the postings at the career center at my university was they wanted an intern to come in and map business processes related to an ERP implementation. Now, at the time, I didn't know much about ERP. I didn't know really what ERP meant. I kind of knew conceptually what it meant, but I had never been involved with one, nor really understood what the technology did. But I liked the idea of process mapping and helping define a supply chain and re-engineer a supply chain. So I applied for this job. I got it. I spent the summer doing it and got to work side by side with a bunch of ERP consultants. In fact, this company was a mid-sized manufacturer in Denver where I was going to school. And the CIO had gone to my university at the University of Denver, and he wanted a MBA student to come help with the project. So I got to spend the summer doing that. I loved the work, and in fact, he asked me to stay on through the entire second year of my MBA. I kept doing the work throughout the entire implementation, and as I did the work, I started to realize how closely aligned my interests with supply chain and process improvement and organizational change, how closely aligned those skill sets were with ERP implementation. So I decided I want to stay in consulting. I liked the idea of consulting and decided to pursue a career in consulting after I graduated. So during my second year while I was doing this internship, I also applied at some of the big consulting firms and ultimately landed a spot at one of the big 5 consulting firms helping clients with their ERP implementations. And during those 2 to 3 years that I was at the consulting firm, I was doing a lot of organizational change management. I did a lot of process mapping, process improvement work. I started to get involved with leading sub-teams within the overall project and enjoyed the work, enjoyed the type of stuff we were doing, but ultimately became a little bit dissatisfied or very dissatisfied with the fact that I felt like we were operating in a way that was completely biased and wasn't necessarily putting clients' interests first. It seemed to me as though we were force-fitting technology in many cases into the client situation. So I also decided that I wanted to go work for a smaller company. So I left after 3 years, wanted to go to a more entrepreneurial, smaller company where I could maybe learn even more, maybe be a little bit less biased, and ultimately advance my career further. So I went to a small consulting firm that also did ERP consulting. They focused on the energy and utilities space. So a lot of my work for about 4 years was in that space. And during the first 6 or 9 months I was at the company, I really enjoyed it, loved the work, loved how entrepreneurial it was. I got to start managing projects and doing international stuff and started to advance my career in a way that would have taken a lot longer at the bigger company. And then right as I was starting to advance in those first few months, a big conglomerate came in and bought our consulting firm, and I thought I was going to have to leave or wouldn't be happy in the role, but actually ended up really liking it once the big company bought us because they let us retain our entrepreneurial spirit and our flexibility, but they also introduced us to a lot of big international clients. So I got to do even more international work and some really cool projects during that time. So that took me, several years into my career, and then ultimately decided that I did want to start a truly independent consulting firm, because even at the firms that I was at after the big consulting firm, they were also biased. They were also peddling certain products and pushing technology first. And I really wanted to go start a company or see if I could start a company that would be truly unbiased, that wouldn't lead with technology, and that would help clients put their interests first and help them manage their transformations even more effectively. So I started off as an independent solo consultant for about 2 years. And then in 2005, I started my first consulting company and ran that company for about 13 years. And over those 13 years, got to see a lot of different ERP systems, helped a lot of different companies globally implement those solutions, built a global network of peers and clients and executives that I'd worked with over the years. And in 2018, I left that company. I had brought on a couple business partners. We didn't share the same vision, so I decided to start another company, Third Stage Consulting, in 2018. So long story short, 22 years in the space, this is really all I know. And so what I've seen during this time is that there's a certain skill set and certain types of personalities and characteristics and traits that I've seen work really well in the consulting space. And there's others that aren't quite as cut out for it. And there's a wide variety of ERP consultants out there in the marketplace. I don't have all the answers, but I wanted to share today what those characteristics are of some of the most effective consultants that I've seen. So this may sound super simplistic and almost like a no-brainer, but it's really important, and that is listening. I see a lot of consultants that they seem like they're listening, or maybe they do listen, but they don't translate that into what it is they're doing as consultants, or they already have the answer going in, or they think they have the right answer without really fully understanding and listening to what the client is saying. So when I talk about listening, or one of the skills that I look for when I'm interviewing consultants or when I'm coaching consultants and developing consultants that have worked for me, I always look to help people really do less talking and less jumping to conclusions and less recommending and less talking in general, and more just listening and understanding what the client is really saying. Now there's a few different layers here. On the surface, you want to understand what the client's saying on the surface. So for example, if a client says, I really want this project to go well, this transformation is really important to the company, here are the things that I'm worried about, or that we as a team are worried about. On the surface, you want to understand what is the organization struggling with and what does the organization need. But there's a second layer underneath that, which is the human psyche. We're dealing with individuals that have their own issues and fears and worries, and we have to in some ways play as amateur psychologists and understand what it is they're really saying. So in other words, a lot of times CIOs, for example, they tell us that they're worried that the project will fail, or that it will cost the company too much money, or that it won't help the company as much as they had hoped. And when you really dig under the surface and you peel back the onion, you start to understand that what they might really be saying is they also don't want to lose their jobs, and they want to preserve their career, and they want to advance their careers. And so there's an individual human dynamic that you have to understand too, and understand that causes people to act differently if you understand both layers of that. So what's best for the organization might threaten or compromise or jeopardize what the individual needs are, and sometimes they're in conflict. And so it's really just understanding and be able to navigate those sorts of things, and listening very carefully to what companies are saying, what the teams are saying as an organization, but also as individuals. The other component of being a good consultant is recognizing that to be a good consultant, you do need to have a certain amount of specialty. You can't be an expert in everything. So it might be that you're a technical expert, or you're a change management expert, or you're a supply chain expert, whatever it may be. And that's okay. You want to have that expertise and have that depth, but you also want to be able to back up and look at the big picture and understand how the work you're doing within your area of specialty, how does it affect the rest of the project and the rest of the organization that you're working with. A lot of consultants that I've worked with over the years are very good and technically proficient at whatever area of expertise they have, but they have trouble seeing how it all ties to the bigger picture, and trouble understanding that they also need to understand how their domain affects the other parts of the business. So being able to really look at that big picture, easier said than done. Some people are better at it than others, but the more you can look at the big picture, the better. And especially when you think about a digital transformation or an ERP project, you're dealing with people, organizational changes, you're dealing with operational and process changes, you're dealing with technology, you're dealing with a lot of different components. So you really have to be able to look at the big picture of how this all ties together. I mentioned earlier how important listening is. On the flip side of that, communication in general is extremely important. So it's one thing to listen, to be able to understand, but you also have to be able to communicate well. And step one, and probably the most important part of communicating, is being able to articulate what you understand about the client and being able to repeat back to them and build confidence that you understand what they're saying, you understand what they're going through, you understand the challenges that you're there to help fix, you understand what that future state might look like and how it might help them. And part of that communication is also receiving the signals back of recognizing that what I'm saying to them isn't resonating, or I'm not quite understanding, or I think I understand, but based on their response back to me, that's not what they're saying or what's on their mind. So it's definitely an art more than a science, but being able to recognize and communicate with individuals, with teams, with executives to frontline employees, all different types of people, that's extremely important. So just as we need to be good communicators and to work with a diverse population of people, we also want to make sure that we can understand and interact with different people, different cultures. Now, there's a few different layers of what I mean here. First of all, you have individuals that are different. Any given organization you work with, any client you work with is going to have a lot of different personalities, different types of people. Some people are going to be very supportive of you being there. Some people are going to be very resistant to you being there. In fact, they may not like you because you're a consultant and you're getting paid a decent amount, and in some ways you're a threat to some people within the client. So you have to recognize that you're dealing with a lot of different people and personalities and not to take that sort of thing personally. And it's just a matter of understanding. It gets back to the part about communication and listening and really just understanding what it is that people are feeling when you're there and recognizing when they're feeling resistance and being able to navigate that well. Now, the other part of it is that every client you work with, not only are they going to have individual people that are different within that same organization, but every organization looks different. They have their own culture. They have their own tolerance for risk and their own tolerance for certain types of things. Some are more professional than others. Some are more sophisticated than others. Some are more blue collar, or some are more service oriented. Whatever you're dealing with, you're going to deal with different types of organizations and cultures at these different companies. So being able to understand those cultures and adapt is very important. And then finally, if you're working internationally, like a lot of our team does, we have an international client base, and every time we go to a client in a different country, we have to adjust to the individual people that are all different within the client, which is different than other clients we've worked with. And now we're in a different country, potentially, that's different from other country cultures that we worked with. So really just being able to understand and adapt to those different cultures is extremely important. And then the final advice I can give, or the final characteristic that I think is a high priority for good ERP consultants, is to be almost like a chameleon, someone that can adapt to different situations. A lot of times you'll be in situations where it's a very laid-back organization. They don't like suits, they don't like formalities, they don't like PowerPoint presentations, they don't like the stuffy consultants. So you've got to be able to adjust to that and adapt and know that maybe I don't wear a suit and tie every day, or maybe I don't put things in PowerPoints every time. Maybe I have more conversational one-on-one interactions versus big formal presentations. Whatever the case may be, is really being able to adjust to different situations. And that's one of the things that I think makes consulting so much fun, is you see so many different personalities, so many different companies, you learn so much about people and processes and different technologies, and it's fun to be able to do that. And even after 22 years, I think I can do this for another 20 years and never fully master the art of learning something new every time I'm on a project, whether it's something new about people, whether it's something new about operations or businesses in general or technologies. There's always a ton to learn on these projects. So you have to be willing to learn and also be a good chameleon along the way. So I hope you found this helpful. If you're ever interested in career advice, or if you're interested in working for Third Stage Consulting, I'd love to see your resume. Feel free to send me an email. I've included my contact information below. I've also included an email address below that you can send your resume, and we track in our database all the candidates that are interested worldwide, and we're constantly reviewing those and interviewing people for our global client base as we build and grow our team. So I hope you found this helpful. I'd love to hear your comments. If you're in the industry, if you're an ERP consultant or an aspiring ERP consultant, I'd love to hear what feedback or questions you have in the comments below. Please also like the video if you like it and subscribe to my channel. Hope you have a great day and we'll talk soon.